This is a question on break even. So there's a question here you can see on the right side of the page. It's about a guy, Tommy the baker, a load of information, financial information, and at the end we're asked to calculate the break even, essentially point, for output, level of profit, margin of safety. After that we're told to draw a graph. There's a lot of information, you're being asked to do a lot, so the very first thing, you generally have to find out a little bit of calculations first, and we're actually specifically asked to do that here. So let's just go into that first, and we'll figure out all the information as we go through it. So you're being asked to calculate the break-even level of output, so the break-even point. And break-even point has a formula. So the formula for break-even point is here. It's something you have to learn off. It's not given to you in the exam. Fixed cost divided by selling price minus variable cost per unit. Selling price minus variable cost per unit is also called contribution per unit. Once you figure this part out, it's called contribution per unit. But I think sometimes it's easier to look at the formula like this, and you can just fill in the figures as you see them once you remember this. Again, step by step. First of all, we need to, figure out all three elements here. After that, we'll know what break-even point is. So we have a lot of information here, and we're told for the fixed cost per month that we've 8,000 and 4,000. So we simply add them up, and our fixed costs are 12. For selling price, if we read through this here, we can see that each kg of bread sells for $3. So the selling price is $3. For variable costs, we can see a list of costs here, and we can see that each of these are involved in producing the bread, and obviously the more bread we produce, the more flour, yeast and spices we need. Therefore, these are variable costs, and they're per kg, so per unit, variable cost per unit. And so we're going to add up 50 cent, 20 cent, 25 cent, and it totals to 95 cent. And so that is the variable cost per unit. And so if we look at this, we can see that all I need to do now is look at the fixed costs on top. So if I deal with this here on top, this is my fixed cost, 12,000. I then have my selling price minus my variable cost. Selling price is $3, variable cost is 0.95. And so I just have to input the information there at the bottom. There we go. 12,000 divided by selling price of $3 minus variable costs of just close to $1. And what we're left with then is actually getting the break-even point. So the answer is 5,853.658. That's what the calculator will give you. Now we're trying to find how many units of bread, how many times does this baker need to sell bread to cover their cost, and we're told this answer. You cannot sell 0.658 loaves of bread. I don't care if you do it to 3 decimal places, 2 decimal places, or 1 decimal places. Nobody's going to go in and purchase a decimal place of a bread. The idea is obviously whatever about cutting it up, but the idea is that he's selling one loaf or one piece of bread at a time. So the unit needs to be a full unit. It's break even. So even if this was 0.001, it doesn't matter. You would always have to round up. For break even point, you have to round up because you need to find out how many loaves of bread or whatever slice of bread you need to sell to cover your cost. So if you ever round down, it means you're kind of slightly underselling and you're not exactly covering your cost. The idea is basically that you always round up for break-even point because that way you definitely recover all of your costs by selling that unit. So 5854 units is break-even point, and all I've done is I've remembered the formula and I've used the information that was given to me and just pieced it in there, and I got it up, the answer, and I rounded it up. Okay, that's the first part. The second part is we're asked to get the level of profit and the margin of safety. So how much profit are they making and the margin of safety at their sales. So how do we work that out? If we, again, as I said, we'll go through this bit by bit as we need to because there's a lot of information here. We can see here, this is just basic discussion at the top. But after that it says the baker makes and sells 400 kg of bread per day. So 400 kg of bread per day. their raw materials, whatever. The baker works every day of the month, and you have to assume there's 30 days in the month. We're asked to calculate the monthly break even and level of profit. And so for the entire month, he's producing 400 kg per day. He does this straight for 30 days. So therefore, per month, he's 400 kg every one of these 30 days. And so I have to multiply 1 day's production by 30. So at the end of it, obviously, I can see how much he's produced at the end of the month, which is going to be 12,000. Just see, I haven't actually showed that here. But 400 kg per day after 30 days, you would basically just multiply the two and we would have 12,000. This is a formula for calculating profit. It is no different to this formula, except one thing. I have, instead of calculating how much we need to exactly break even, I just call this units sold. This is units anyway. Units is equal to fixed cost divided by selling price minus variable cost. But for this one, there's no profit. We want to see how much units we need to sell to break even. The formula is the same, except you add in target profit. And so in this case, we're trying to find out how much the profit's going to be. So this is going to be unknown. It's going to be X. And for the units sold, unlike the last time, for break even, we need to find out how much we need to sell to cover our cost. This time we know how much he sold. We're just trying to find out how much profit he makes, because we know he sells 400 kg per day. Sells 400 kg per day, and he does this straight for 30 days. 12,000 units are sold at the end of this month. Fixed cost, exactly the same. The fixed cost stayed the same per month. The fixed cost is 12,000, and we do not know the target profit, so we're going to call it X. Just like you would in maths, you call that X because you don't know it, and therefore it's going to be the only thing we don't know, and we'll be able to figure it out at the end. Selling price stays the same at $3. Variable cost stays the same at 95 cents, and so if I look at this here, I'll just put in the figures. 12,000 plus X divided by $3 minus 95 cents, and we know that we've sold 12,000 units. So how am I going to work this out here? I just basically work across 12,000. I'm going to bring this over, multiplied by 2.05 is equal to 12,000 plus X. As you would in maths, you're just solving across for X, bringing over the 12,000, and we're left with X is equal to 12,600. All I did basically was just rearrange this. 24,000 and something minus 12,000 equals X. X is equal to 12,600. That's the profit. How did I do it? Formula is the exact same. Fixed cost divided by selling price minus variable cost as here, except you have target profit. And because the profit is what we don't know, we do know how many units were sold in a month. Profit is X. And you solve for X. Margin of safety is a little bit different. I was supposed to black these out just to, obviously you can see them now, but just to go through it step by step. Margin of safety is, okay, you sold 12,000. How many units have been making you profit? The idea is, how many units above break-even point have you sold? And these units make you profit. So the formula is very straightforward, and again, you have to memorize it, remember it for the exam. Margin of safety is your total output minus your break-even point. We set our total output for the entire month as 12,000. So I've already put that in. 12,000 is my total output, and we've already found break-even point to be 5,854. And so once I put those in down here, just to bring those back, 12,000 units minus my break-even point of 5,854, and the difference here is margin of safety is 6,164 units. That's how many units I've sold that have made me profit. It's the units above break-even point to the total output. Okay, so all I did there was memorize the formula. Total output, we already found out how much we sold at the end of the month minus the break-even point. Okay, so we've dealt with monthly break-even, we've dealt with profit levels, and we've dealt with margin of safety. All we have left to do is to prepare the chart and show everything. Showing clearly the monthly break-even level of output, level of profit, margin of safety. We're always asked to show the same things anyway. This is a tedious process to draw up on the computer, so I've had to draw it up beforehand. It's very difficult for me to try to make this a short video if I'm going to be drawing these lines and during the video, so I've kind of had to leave these here. I'll go through them step by step and try to picture that this is completely blank. You draw your y-axis, you draw your x-axis. Your x is always units and your y is always revenue and cost. There's a title at the top, it's break-even chart for Tommy the Baker. So try to picture the rest of it being blank, just because we want to think through how are you going to draw this step by step. Very first thing you must do is always get an idea about where these numbers go up to, because in order for you to draw any of these lines, you're going to need to know kind of the scale as to where these lines will go. So the first thing that I'll point you towards is the units. It's very straightforward. What are the maximum units that we are going to deal with? And that will obviously, help us solve how wide the graph is going to go. And we've already established here that the total units that we can get are 400 kg per day for 30 days was 12,000. And so they're not going to go higher than that. So 12,000 is the maximum units. You don't need to show 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, whatever. You just need to show that this is 0 and this is the max. Do the same here for revenue and costs. This column is always just dollars, pounds, dirhams, euros, doesn't matter. It's always money. So it's the sales and the cost. What's the highest that's going to go up to? It's always selling price, always the sales. And so let's find out what the total sales are. The total sales, if we sell 12,000 units, selling price is $3, the total sales is going to be 12,000 multiplied by $3, which is 36 grand, sorry. So equals 12,000 multiplied by $3, just to show you that here is 36,000. So the sales are going to go up to 36 grand, and that's the biggest number we'll get on the graph. The cost will be below it, and so the sales, total sales, $3 a piece. I sell 12,000 of them over the month. 36,000 is total revenue. Okay, you have the scale drawn up. Again, please try to pretend the graph is empty. Anyway, the first thing you're going to do is draw the fixed cost line, because it's the easiest. And it's, again, one of 3 lines. Fixed cost, we would have done this up at the very start. We had 8,000 and 4,000, and we're just going to add those up to get 12. And so my fixed costs are 12,000. We know that 36 is up here and 0 is up here, so again, you should try to have a good scale idea about where 12,000 is. There's no point showing it up here. It's about a third of the way up. So this is my fixed cost line. 12,000, I just draw it horizontally. Fixed costs do not change depending on output. So regardless of how many units I sell, it will always stay at 12 grand. Again, you do not need to show all these numbers, but it's important when you draw a line to show the number that represents that line. So the 12,000 would have to go in, as with the 36 and the 12. Anyway, this is called fixed cost. So let's show it to be fixed cost. Okay, that's the first line drawn. After that, the next easiest line to draw is sales. Sales will always start at the same point. If you sell 0 units, how much money are you going to make? 0. I don't care what the selling price is. If you don't sell anything, you'll make 0. So the line would always start here. If you sell 12,000 units, how much will you make? We've already established that. Every unit sells for $3. If you sell 12,000 of them, you'll make 36,000. So therefore 36,000 here, 12,000 here. That's my point. Draw the line. This line is my sales revenue line. It's showing all the way along. If I sell this many units down here, this will be my income. If I sell this many units down here, maybe about 11,000, this will be my income, again my revenue. And if I sell up to the maximum 12,000, this will be my revenue. That's the green line drawn, and that's the black line drawn. We have 2 lines drawn. The last one to draw is the total cost. You can draw a variable cost line, but sometimes it kind of confuses things. So all we need to remember is that for total cost, there's 2 things involved. There's fixed cost and variable cost. And so if I just show this out here, fixed costs are equal to 12,000. Okay, variable costs, we don't know how much they're equal to, but it's pretty easy to find out because the variable cost per unit is these three things, which we've already added up at the very start, to be 95 cents per unit. So therefore we know that variable cost is 95 cents per unit. There's 12,000 units, and so if I multiply those out, I'm going to get 11,000, I think it's 11,500 something, it doesn't matter, I forget the number. I'm just going to call it 11,500 for now. I have the number put in here at the side, I just obviously don't know the number off the top of my head. 95 cents per unit, you sell 12,000 of them, so it works out at, let's just call it 11,000 and something. After that, you're going to add these two up. I'm going to show it. I had that number put in somewhere and now I've lost it. Right, apologies. I'm actually going to have to work that out because that's a relevant number. 0.95 multiplied by the 12,000 units is equal to 11,400. Close enough. So 11,400 is my number, and so obviously I have fixed cost at 12 grand, I have variable cost at 11,400. Those two added up get me total cost. So if I just add the two of those, it's going to be equal to 23,400. So 23,400 is my total cost. 23,400 is my total cost when I sell 12,000 units. Because again, I multiply this by 12,000 by 0.95. So when I sell 12,000 units, my total cost is 23,400. Let's roughly work our way up to about 23,000 here. This is the point. So from here, this is the point at which total costs can get up to 23,000. I'm going to have to show that here as a number. I failed to show that earlier. So 23,400 is approximately around here. So again, all you need to do is just have some form of a dot to show you that that's the maximum total cost can go up to. It doesn't start at zero though. I don't start the line from here. Why not? Because my total costs when I produce nothing are not zero. Sales were, but total costs can never go below fixed because you've paid that regardless of how many you produce. So if I produce 0 units, my total costs will still be my rent, gas bill, electricity, cleaning, maintenance of the shop and machines and salaries. So it starts here. So the total cost line will start at fixed and it will just build on top of it. And you know, depending on how much the variable is per unit, it's going to go up to here. And so this here is my total cost line. It's the red line. And it's showing from 12,000 to 23,400 on top of the fixed cost. So we've worked that one out. Apologies that I didn't have this figure at hand. A few things just to point out here, just to label these to make sure we're okay with them. You have to label the numbers. It's really important. If you draw a line, it has to show exactly where that line is worked up to. You don't need to show the numbers in between. So the 36,000 has to be physically shown there because that's at the point at which total revenue is there. The 23,400 is the point here for total cost that has to be shown. And the 12,000 has to be shown because it is the fixed cost. The fixed cost in dollars is 12,000. I have my 3 lines shown, and now I just have to label points and areas. And so there's one point that we absolutely always need to show. It's break even. Where did the green line and the red line cross? And they crossed about here, and of course we've always called that break even point. It's where they meet, it's where they're the same. And now we're going to have to show coordinates and the numbers for this point. So I've roughly scrolled down there. And what's the figure going to be? How many units are going to show this break-even point? Don't guess. Use the figure you've done, 5854. And if you've drawn this accurately enough, it should resemble about halfway between 0 and 12, which we're going to say it roughly does. This is my break-even units. So again, you have to label it. You're physically asked to show clearly the break-even level of output, level of profit, and margin of safety. So we're going to have to show those. This is the break-even point. Go down here, 5854. I need to show it on the costs as well. If you go across, this would be approximately the figure. You don't guess it. How much revenue am I going to make when I sell 5854? Well, my break-even point, my break-even point is 5854, but my break-even point in revenue would simply be the 5854 multiplied by the selling price. So selling price is 3. So 17,562 would be this point here. And again, you could roughly show across here that this point is going to be 17,562. Break-even revenue, break-even in units. That's that shown. Blue area, the area from basically above sales and below costs. Ignore everything else outside here. It's just anything above sales and below cost. Ignore the fixed cost line. It's just total cost, total revenue. And that's going to be shaded in blue here. This is my loss. It's the area which we have a loss. The exact opposite. Once my revenue surpasses the cost, everything above here is going to be a profit. So all of this yellow area here is going to be a profit, so therefore all I have to do is just label that as profit. Don't shade in the exam. You're not allowed to use multiple different colors. So in the exam you just write profit here, or else just write it and draw an arrow to show the area. I've labeled my loss, labeled my profit, labeled my break-even point, and I've been asked to the level of profit. Obviously loss is there, break-even point. Margin of safety is the other thing I need to show. Margin of safety is the difference between, you see it here, the total output minus the break-even point. Very simply, this is the total output, and this is the break-even point. So everything between this here is your margin of safety. It's your profit area essentially. Everything beyond this unit was a profit. So I just go down here, show a horizontal difference between the two, and it's margin of safety. And that is a fully labeled break-even chart. Complicated once you look at it like this. Few things to quickly summarize it. You're drawing your x-axis and your y-axis up here. Revenues and costs, units. You need to find the total numbers at the maximum for each scale. Your total units will go here, and then the highest revenue will go, it'll be the number of units multiplied by the selling price will be here. After that, you have your fixed costs. To scale, draw the fixed cost line, make sure you label it and put in the number, 12,000. Then you do revenue. It always starts at 0. What's the highest point it'll go to? How many units can I possibly sell? And what is the selling price? $3. So the maximum revenue is going to be 36. From 0 to that point, I draw a line. Sales revenue. Make sure you label it and show the units. After that, you have cost. Costs are two things, fixed and variable. Your fixed is already drawn, and that would be the lowest point. Your total cost cannot go below that. After that, you need to find out what are the total costs at the maximum units, and that's going to be influenced by variable. The maximum units are 12,000 units, and we have 95 cents per unit for variable cost. So I'd already done that up. It was 95 cents multiplied by 12,000, and that gave me 11,400. That's the total amount variable cost can go up to. So the total cost is both of those together, and it's going to be 23,400. Again, you have to show the point, you have to show the number to show its relevance, and that there is the highest point sales or cost can go towards. I draw the line. After that, you just simply have to label. So fixed cost line, sales revenue line, total cost line. After that is just labeling. Profit, sales is greater than cost. Loss, sales is less than cost. Break-even point is where they meet. It's just a point, and you need to show the units as you've already calculated, and the revenue, which is just simply the units multiplied by the selling price, because you're going to find out how much money that makes you. How much money do you have to make to cover your cost? 17,562. After that, you've everything here done, and you just have to show the margin of safety, which is the difference between total output and break-even point, which is there. I hope that clears it up for you. I know there's a lot going on, but follow through with it bit by bit. Pause, rewind, rewatch something if you don't get it, and that is a break-even chart.